Hello everybody, morning, afternoon, night, whatever time you're listening to this. I hope you're all interested in true crime, as in today's episode I will be talking about the very popular story of 23-year-old san-man-Yee, also known as the HelloKitty case. Before I start, I would like to put out a trigger warning to anyone who may suffer or involved with addiction, drugs, abuse, sexual assault, rape, murder, anything along those lines. But let's just get started. I'd like to say any information I've found on the internet, I don't know all the ins and outs, but this is all the details I could get. But just not a trigger warning, this story is very detailed and very gruesome. So if you're really, what's it called? It's a word for it I can't think of. Sensitive to anything along the lines of blood, bones, etc. This maybe isn't the podcast for you to listen to, but let's just get started. The story begins in Hong Kong in the year of 1999, March 17th, which is when the torture of poor 23-year-old san-man-Yee started due to meeting a young man called Chan-man-Lok, aged 34. He was a drug dealer, which later on san-man-Yee stole £4,000 straight from his wallet. After being desperate for drugs, soon after the money was stolen, Chan-man-Lok then asked two of his friends to kidnap san-man-Yee. At the beginning, his plan was to coerce san-man-Yee into prostitution, which is honestly makes me sick to my stomach thinking about that. But his plan was to prostitute san-man-Yee until she gave the money back, plus 10,000 extra just for the crimes she committed, which was theft, obviously. But Chan-man-Lok's plan led to something that turned into something with sinister intentions. Chan-man-Lok, his friends, and his girlfriend, 13 years old at the time, began the month-long daily infliction of the physical and mental abuse of san-man-Yee. On March 17th, 1999, came across san-man-Yee on the side of the road. San-man-Yee was scared to go back to the house of prostitution, also known as a brothel, which Chan-man-Lok was there. She was obviously scared to face him, as obviously she stole from him and wanted £14,000 back in return. So this is when Chan-man-Lok decided to get two of his friends from his gang to basically just kidnap this woman. Two of his friends came across Chan-man-Yee on the side of a road. These two men, named Leung Shing Chow, aged 27 years old, and Leung Wei Lun. Sorry if the pronunciation's wrong, my pronunciation is terrible, but that man was aged 21. They abducted her and flung her in the back of a van and drove her to a building that Chan-man-Yee's Lok's gang owned, known as the Triads. So the Triads put her into an apartment that, of course, was barely habitable. She could not live in it. It was rotten, crumbling from the walls, absolutely disgusting. I don't even know how to describe it. The photos that I seen, obviously I did not intentionally research those photos, but when I researched this case, the photos I seen made me feel sick to my stomach. But Chan-man-Lok's evil new strategy was to prostitute san-man-Yee to himself, his friends, his associates, the members of the Triad, until she paid off her debt to Chan-man-Yee. On the first night of multiple sadistic actions towards san-man-Yee, they came up with the idea to abuse and rape her all night consistently into dawn. Hours upon end, being enjoyed by Chan-man-Lok's new girlfriend at the time, who was only 13, but her identity has been kept confidential. But the weapons brought into the scene were such as metal bars, kitchen utensils, bats, even pieces of furniture, which I don't know the details of. That's all I could find on the internet. During all of these alarming actions towards san-man-Yee, They also forced her to laugh and smile and tell them how much she apparently loved all these beatings. If she refused it, they would beat her even harder. That makes me feel sick to my stomach. They're making her do that. I don't know how people can be that mentally stable, but obviously there's people in this world who are, which obviously need psychiatric help. Not long after the first night of the brutal beatings towards san-man-Yee, she could no longer provide the service that the Triad were making her do to get out her debt towards san-man-Lock. She couldn't move as she was so physically maltreated that the prostituted clients were no longer attracted to san-man-Yee. So san-man-Lock's plans obviously weren't going to work. He didn't care, as now as he had his own personal punching bag, he liked having as a hostage that he could do whatever he wanted to with her. Honestly, that's sick. When the clients and members of the Triad were performing actions towards her, they would be in the next room when they weren't performing these sick actions towards san-man-Yee, they would just be sitting in the next room playing video games as if there wasn't a woman in the opposite room dying. Like in the same property as them dying. They were acting as if that did not happen. In the next room next to her, just playing video games, doing drugs, just living life basically. The members of the Triad started to get more creative with the ways they would torture her. They began to maltreat and burn plastic onto her skin. Dripping red hot candle wax onto her body, dripping plastic onto her body, like burned plastic, melting it into her skin. They done it directly to her skin as well, just got a lighter and started burning her. They particularly done it to the bottom of her feet so she couldn't stand or walk or basically do anything. She couldn't do anything at this point because at this point she was so weak, she was on her deathbed. san-man-Lock's associates found any use of kitchen appliances and utensils towards san-man-Yee. These actions were not released. I couldn't find anything on the internet that they would do towards her with these weapons. But what I could find is that they would wound her, left big gushes on her, like big gushes of blood. They would then stuff her wounds with food and any spices, dirt and urine. They would stuff open wounds with that. They would smear them onto open cuts. They would also force san-man-Yee to consume her own feces. That is revolting. Makes me feel sick. Whilst also starving her. If she gagged or refused to eat her own excrements, they would morally beat her. So it weren't as if they were already beating her, but if she gagged or refused to do it, they would do it even harder. As if she wasn't being beaten enough anyways, but... Halfway through san-man-Yee's captivity, her weakness was getting worse, so this would spoil the murderers' apparent fun. They were no longer amused to continue using san-man-Yee for their own sinister amusement. She wasn't reacting as much as she used to, so one of san-man-Lock's friends' idea was to levitate san-man-Yee in the air, making her easier to beat. To do this, they would tie up her wrist with electrical cords and tie her onto the ceiling fan, left her hanging there for hours on end, sometimes even overnight. So then, on the 15th of April 1999, almost a full month after san-man-Yee's abduction, the Triad, which is san-man-Lock's gang at the time, they decided they wanted to go out for food. So the 3 members of san-man-Lock's gang and his 13-year-old girlfriend, when they went out for food, they would lock san-man-Yee in the bathroom, so of course she couldn't escape, try anything to get out basically, you get the story. A couple of hours later they returned to the apartment. This was then when 13-year-old san-man-Lock's girlfriend found san-man-Yee in the bathroom dead. This was bound to happen. I don't know what they were expecting from this, but apparently they didn't want her to die, but it was going to happen eventually with the brutal stuff they were doing towards her. But san-man-Yee's body was, this is very detailed, but her body was found oozing with thick orange pus. But at this point the group were left in shock. I don't know why, I don't know what they were expecting, but killing her wasn't their intention, so the group had to dispose of the body. They were coming up with strategies on how they were going to do it. They slept on it overnight, but eventually san-man-Lok took it upon himself and came up with the idea of everyone that her body couldn't stay as the one piece. If it were to be kept as the one piece, it would be more easier and more identifiable to discover, so it would make it easier for them and themselves. san-man-Yee's body was cut into pieces. san-man-Lok took a butcher's knife and began dismembering her body. They removed her flesh from her bones, put her body parts in a pot. On the stove, boiled the flesh, organs, muscles, etc. This leads to the title, explaining the story of HelloKitty. You're probably wondering, well, why is this called the HelloKitty case? You're probably thinking that's so random. This is where that story begins. Once they finished boiling her flesh, her skin, muscles, etc., they then took san-man-Yee's head. After dismembering all the flesh off of it, they actually took the skull off of the body and stuffed it into a life-sized Hello Kitty plushie. My childhood was ruined when I found that out. I watched Hello Kitty when I was younger growing up, and that has just ruined my childhood completely after hearing that part of the story. But they then sewed the doll back up. The only remains the police ever found of san-man-Yee's body was, of course, the skull inside this Hello Kitty life-size doll, a tooth on the floor, and some of her organs left inside a fridge. Without san-man-Yee's body, the police couldn't determine a cause of death. This is when the 13-year-old girlfriend of san-man-Lok confessed the whole story of san-man-Yee, while san-man-Lee himself and his associates, the Triad, had a whole different story, which was that san-man-Lok did own a brothel, which was like a prostitute house, containing of san-man-Yee, but they said that everything they'd done, anything sexual they'd done towards san-man-Yee was consensual. But san-man-Yee was a meth addict in that she overdosed on meth. They supposedly panicked as she was under their care, and they obviously didn't want this to happen, so being the result, stuffing the evidence inside a Hello Kitty mermaid doll, which was life-sized. While the police had no physical evidence that they raped and abused this young woman, they said it was a drug overdose, which was very suspicious because of conflicted accounts. The police couldn't charge the Triad with murder, being no physical evidence, so instead all three men were charged with manslaughter and all given life sentences without the possibility of parole for 20 years, which is, I'm not exactly sure what parole is, but what I am going to assume, again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that they get to go out and about but under supervision with a tag, basically, is what I'm going to assume. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But they were all visited by psychiatrists, but due to my research, the psychiatrist couldn't find any mental illness within these men. But to my knowledge, of course, you have to be at some level of messed up to commit such horrible crimes, even have the thought to do these horrible crimes. The 13-year-old teenage girl, although she did take part in the torture, she was disgustingly let free with no charges. I get she's 13, but she was obviously old enough to know this was not the right thing to do. Do you get what I mean? Like, old enough to know this was wrong. But she was let free of charge as she gave so much evidence and information towards the police. it was like a plea deal. So the police were like, if you give us any evidence and any information you know, we'll let you away with it, basically. Physically let you away with murder, basically, is what happened with this young girl. So after the whole murder, because of the accounts that this young girl had gave to the police about san-man-Yee's spirit haunting her in her dreams, whispering in her ear, you're going to suffer from this, blah, 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 which is why she confessed to the police, because this 13-year-old girl's intentions weren't to go to the police, but supposedly the spirit of san-man-Yee was haunting this little girl and whispering stuff in her ear, visiting her in her dreams, etc. Which is why she confessed to the police, because she did not want to be haunted anymore. She's crazy to me, but people that believe in ghosts believe that san-man-Yee's spirit is very easy to contact. So the apartment building that san-man-Yee had passed away became a meeting place for people that were interested in this sort of stuff, which I'm assuming were like ghost tours, stuff like that, people to use a Ouija board, stuff like that, people that youngsters would go to do haunted spooky videos for YouTube, stuff like that. It became a meeting point. After a while, it became quite sinister and disrespectful, which I get. That is just not right at all. So in 2012, the building eventually got demolished. But this is where the most messed up thing happens. In 2016, where the apartment building once was, there's been a hotel built upon where the apartment building of san-man-Yee's murder took place, which personally I would not stay at. So I do not want to be haunted by this ghost. I do not want to go anywhere near this town in Hong Kong. Unless people are interested in all that sort of stuff, on you go. Personally, I am interested in ghost tours, murder tours, stuff like that, but I personally would not go to a place where I know for a fact a murder has took place. But now for updates on the men of the murder. Been given 20 years without patrol back in 1999. The patrol expired in 2019, which was about 4 years ago. I cannot find any research if they're still alive or any recent updates, etc. Now being at 2022, the murder happened 23 years ago. But this concludes the story of the HelloKitty case. I will be posting about my next podcast soon, so feel free to send in suggestions. I'm focusing on true crime at the moment, because that is... Sorry for the wee cut off there, that's just an editing mistake. But hope you all enjoyed. As I was saying, feel free to send in suggestions. This is my third podcast, but also I will be releasing more stuff in the future and more subjects. But keep safe, and I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you.